This fly is brought to you by the Kennebec Valley Fly Tires and sponsored by the Kennebec Valley chapter of Trout Unlimited. We're going to tie a pheasant tail today. This is a very good pattern. It's a standard nymph that has been around for a long time. Start to thread a couple eye sizes back from the eye and wrap to the bend of the hook. Let the thread hang between the eye and the barb of the hook and separate out 4 or so fibers on a pheasant tail and clip those fibers off and measure the gap, and that's the length that you want your tail to be. So attach this on using a pinch technique. You see I pinch that thread between the thumb and forefinger and then just pull straight down, and it's on there, and you really only need that one wrap to hold those fibers in place. And you just keep some tension on that. Grab a piece of wire. It's a good idea to have cut that ahead of time, of course, like I did. And it only takes one wrap to secure that. And once you've got that in place, if you lift those fibers and wrap forward, you've got your body material, your tail, and your rib all done. And then you wrap a tapered thread body. Wrap up to about the midpoint, start wrapping back to the bend, come back to the midpoint, back to the bend. But every time you go back to the bend, don't go all the way, and you'll get that nice tapered thread underbody. And once you have it, you can start wrapping these fibers forward. And I could certainly have used a pair of hackle pliers, but you see you can do it without them. But hackle pliers definitely make the job a lot easier. Wrap those 4 fibers forward. Get to the end here, come up behind them and tie them off with your thread. Missed one of them, there we go. And with those tied off, simply trim those butt ends, and it's time to wrap the rib up. And you see one piece of the fiber broke already, but that's not a problem. Just trim it off. They're going to break when the fish hit anyway. And counter wrap this rib. I'm going to make about 4 wraps to get up here. And with this counter wrapped wire on there, you won't have to worry about those fibers breaking now. It'll hold them pretty much. And you can just helicopter this off by twisting the wire. And you got the rear part of the body done, the tail on. The rib is wrapped. And it's time for the thorax and wing case. We'll put the wing case material on first, which is again pheasant tail fibers. I've got a bigger clump of these, about 10 of them probably, and cut the ends off so they've got a square end and attach them to the hook right back to where the body ended. But I'm going to hold my fingernail on top of these to kind of spread these out a little bit, so that the wing case will have some width when I fold it forward. These are going to stick out the back while we wrap the thorax, and then get folded over towards the eye to build or develop the wing case. So I've got those fibers secured in there. I get some peacock herl, 3 or 4 strands. You don't even really need that much. And I do the same thing as far as trimming some of the tips away. The tips are kind of fine and easy to break, so if you cut back a ways, you don't need the whole length of these anyway. So if you cut back a ways, you get into a stronger quill, and with those square ends cut, it's easier to tie the peacock herl in. Go ahead and tie it in and wrap back to where the body starts or ended. Bring your thread forward and let it hang, and take those fibers and wrap those forward to the thread. Now you can hold the thread and the fibers together and wrap the thread and the fibers forward together. It helps secure the fibers, but it's a little trickier to learn how to do. But it's something you might want to try. Instead of just wrapping the herl forward like this, if you're holding the thread at the same time and wrapping, it does reinforce the herl fibers. But with those herl fibers wrapped forward, I go ahead and trim the butts off. And I will fold the wing case forward. Kind of lay that down, let it spread a little bit. Pinch wrap. I don't have to worry too much about this because I can grab the fibers and pull them up, and that slides my thread back to where it's supposed to be. I can tighten that off, tie that off, secure it with a couple wraps here, and I'm going to separate 2 fibers on one side and 2 fibers on the other to make the legs out of these larger butt sections, and it only takes a couple fibers on each side because of that. Now some people, when they tie this wing case material in, what they'll do is they'll leave the tips sticking out beyond the eye, and they, instead of cutting them off like I did and squaring the tips off and then tying that material in, they'll leave those tips sticking out beyond the eye, and then they can fold the tips down and make legs with the tips of this wing case. But I find it a lot easier to make the legs with the butt sections of these fibers as opposed to the tips, mainly because the tips just kind of disappear. You look back at that tail, you see there's 4 fibers back there and you can barely see it. These 2 leg fibers on each side will stick out from the body more and not have the tendency to be pulled against the body and just become part of the body. They'll stick out and actually be legs. So I do use these butt sections for legs as opposed to tying the tips in. But there you go. There's a whip finish to complete the fly, and we'll trim those legs, and you've got a pheasant tail that's very fishable. This is a size 14. It's fished very often in 14, 16, 18, and 20. 16 and 18 by far being the 2 most popular sizes for a pheasant tail. It is often used to imitate blue-wing olives, and they're a small fly, so that may sound small, but those are the sizes of the natural insect, and that's what you want to fish. And you see the legs stick out very nicely here, and this fly fishes very well. Thank you very much for watching.